All right, Jim. As Miami-Dade County's Chief Resilience Officer, it's great to be able to go straight to the source with you and hear directly about the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers fact-based study, which could bring certainly several billions of dollars to Miami-Dade County to promote resiliency and reduce the risk of coastal storm surge. So first, can you tell us a little bit more about what the back-based study is and how Miami-Dade County got selected by the Corps to be a focus area?
Lauren, in the fall of 2018, after a series of hurricanes that occurred, including Hurricane Irma, which impacted our county, Congress authorized and funded the Corps to conduct these coastal storm risk management studies in several communities around the South Atlantic coast and the Gulf. The selection process was internal to the Corps, so I'm not exactly sure how I got on the list, but when the Corps presented the option to the mayor and the county commission, it was 100% funded by the federal government, a 3-year, $3 million study to see what would be needed that would meet the congressional requirements for federal funding to protect our community from storm surge. And that's very important. It's a storm surge protection feasibility study. It looked attractive to us and we signed on.
So absolutely, it sounds like there are huge financial potential upshots of working with the Corps and the federal government in this way. I mean, do you see other benefits to the community of working in partnership on this study?
Well, yes, I do. I think, maybe this one more additional Corps study just reinforced the fact that Miami-Dade has a long-standing relationship with the Corps of Engineers, primarily our Jacksonville district office. In the case of the back-based study, we're actually working with Norfolk district office. So this process has maybe informed us in a way that we had become more lackadaisical, if you will, how important it is to be on top of all the different Corps projects that are going on in the county, how they're approved, how they impact us, and how we keep our community informed.
Right. So recently, the county indicated their intention to move forward with a so-called locally preferred plan in the sort of parlance of the Army Corps of Engineers. So what was the county's kind of thinking, rationale behind asking to develop a locally preferred plan rather than use the draft plan prepared by the Army Corps? And what are some of the county's priorities for the locally preferred?
So it's really a combination. We're not divorced from the plan that was being developed under the 3-year process. The Corps' official name for that is the National Economic Development Plan. And they actually will complete that document along the lines of their original intent. They just won't move it forward because we have not given them the required letter of commitment from the mayor indicating that we, as the non-federal sponsor, want to move forward. So when we reached that point, and I must say that, a great part of the plan is totally agreeable to us, dealing with, and I won't dwell on that, but it's important to know that the disagreement came down to the structural proposals that were proposed for protection urban areas from storm surge. And given the time and the amount of detail we had available in that the project, that's where we had kind of a point where we felt we needed to look and see, was there something additional that the Corps could provide to us? Now, this is important. The locally preferred plan is an option made available to the non-federal sponsor by the Corps. Right. It's not like we're off going to do something and come back and talk to the Corps. We have to ask that be granted. It's called a waiver, and we're waiting those official acceptances. So we don't have any guarantee. Right. We made a solid case, and we're hopeful. If it were allowed, then we would conduct an additional study, would take more time and more money with the Corps jointly, and then together that product would be brought together and added to the original study. Decisions would be made about what was included and what wasn't, and then we would see if we could go forward.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, it sounds like developing a locally preferred plan is a process that the county would undertake in partnership with the Corps an additional study.
That's right.
What do you envision a process that would also engage community stakeholders?
Absolutely. Right.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the core process, and as we went through it, they did every effort they could. Of course, we were all had to adjust to COVID. And so a lot of meetings that would have been probably more productive for face to face or even walking around the locations were confined to Zoom meetings. And I think that we look forward to engaging the Corps and the community on our locally preferred plan option in a much more straightforward way. The mayor's talked about a stakeholder committee, bringing in experts to advise the county. We have a lot of experts in county government. We were quite comfortable. We didn't bring any new consultants or anything else up to this point, but that's certainly something we would look at in addition to the public engagement and outreach for that new step.
Do you have a sense of when that process would begin and approximately how long it would take?
The way you best sort of get a picture of what the Corps does, every 2 years, Congress is, they're not by law, but by tradition, they take up a Water Resources Development Act, where Corps projects that have completed the feasibility study are eligible to go to the next step. And they have to be authorized by Congress to do that. So we had originally, under the milestone of the 3-year study, would have been in line to be considered, because there's no guarantee with Congress, for the 2022 WRDA. With the request to extend time, do a locally preferred plan, that would push us to the 2024 WRDA, and which is, typically in the fall. So then you just count backwards. And if you're going to make that target milestone, you got to be pretty much done by the fall of the year before. So 23. So we'd have, we're 21, by the time we get going, it's going to be probably the first quarter of 2022. You sort of find your time frame you got and you get it done in that time and you're ready for WRDA. Everything you do with the Corps is key to being able to get something authorized. Only an authorized project can get funded for implementation.
Very helpful. Final question, Jim. You talked about, some initial ideas that the mayor and others within the county have about kind of community and stakeholder engagement. How would you advise, those organizations and leaders in our community who are interested in being engaged to kind of stay apprised of, how they can plug in and be part of that process?
Well, specific to a Corps process.
Specific to, kind of the vision of how you all would like to engage community partners.
Well, first of all, I think the thing that gives us a real strong tool for going forward is we have a strategy for dealing holistically with sea level rise flooding and other forms of flooding that we experience every year, our sea level rise strategy. So where the core study was only really focused on one thing, storm surge, we kept understanding that we had to understand that in the context of all these other flooding incidents. We couldn't make our situation worse by trying to just protect ourselves from storm surge, which is important, by the way. So having that plan in place helped guide our comments on the project that the Corps had been authorized to undertake, the study. So, if you can have your guideposts, where you want to go there, so you have that to use as a reference point for talking to the Corps. Then I think these studies are very much driven by economics. They literally call the final plan the National Economic Development Plan, and it's really a cost benefit. So the data that drives those kinds of decisions has to be quantifiable. So whenever you can, look for data sets that help you quantify things that are difficult. The non-structural proposals and can be quantified, but sometimes they're there's less experience with that. But that's where we need to go. We need to be You're not going to overnight change the way the Corps does their business, but we can be much better prepared, have the data, create the stakeholder process, and have your own plan. And then you start to really, then you're really a partner with the Corps. And that's where I think we need to be. And I think the Corps is quite open to that.
Fantastic, Jim. Well, thank you so much for your time. I think this was immensely useful to peel back the curtain, if you will, and share a little bit more about this. And we'll look forward to keeping the community here in Southeast Florida updated on the progress as the county hopefully has the opportunity to work in partnership with the Corps on the locally preferred plan. So,
well, thanks, Lauren, for everything you do. And it was also helpful, frankly, to have the sea level rise projections from the compact to share with the Corps. You know, we didn't have to go looking for that. We had that right there, and we can hand it to them. So the compact's part of the partnership. Thank you.
We always like to hear that. Take care. Thank you, Jim.
Take care.